Okay, with Hashem's loving grace, today we're talking about a new day, and okay. There we go. If everybody can, there you go. You can mute. I'm getting some interferences from other people's things. Maybe you can mute, and afterwards, so when we come to questions, we'll unmute. Okay. Good. Everybody hear me? Okay, no problem. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Let me just go down and just make sure everybody hears. Good, 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 good. Okay, wonderful. All right. So today we're going to talk about what we can expect with Mashiach on the way. And this is, you will soon see why the Yetzer doesn't want this sure publicized. And okay, I'm going to say it anyway, because just for 20 people to say it, and by saying it, it goes up and, and they hear it wherever, all over. This sure is not based on politics or not based on the conjecture of Mashiach websites and not based on anything. It's based on a book called Eved Shlema, written by the Gaon of Vilna, okay? The Eved Shlema, written by the Gaon of Vilna, and I very much love studying the Gaon of Vilna, and he wrote an amazing book. The Gaon of Vilna, for people that don't know, was just as much of a specialist in Kabbalah as he was in the revealed Torah and Gemara. People know, especially in the Gemara and Halacha. Okay, but the Gaon of Vilna was an unbelievable Kabbalist. Unbelievable Kabbalist. Not only so, if it says in this book, in the name, the Gaon of Vilna writes in this book, and people would go crazy if they tell them the yeshiva world, what would the Gaon of Vilna say about what Torah is going to bring Mashiach? They say, oh yeah, heavy in-depth Gemara. The Gaon of Vilna says that the study of Kabbalah is going to bring Mashiach. It's going to hasten the bring of Mashiach. And he was a Kabbalist. He knows what he's talking about. The Gaon of Vilna had all of Torah on the palm of his hand. Okay, but we'll come back to that. But really, that's inclusive in the Gemara, because no person can say he studies Kabbalah and have all these silly things, these Kabbalah lessons and whatnot. A person cannot know what's flying in Kabbalah if he hasn't learned the Gemara, because the Gemara is every bit as concealed knowledge as in Kabbalah. Okay, so first I want to give a preference to today's lesson with a look at current events. Let's hear some Emunah news. And the Emunah news in first of Israel and then in America and overseas. I'm saying America more than the UK and Australia and Canada, because things are going faster in America than they are in the UK. And it seems that the Amalek is more active, more stronger in control in America than he is. And he's a little bit more toned down and a little more reserved in the Great Britain. Okay, but he's there. He's there. But things are happening faster in America and American Israel. American Israel is like what the Gemara refers to. When the Gemara refers to in the Gemara's prophecies, when the Gemara says, when Rome rises, Jerusalem falls. When Jerusalem rises, Rome falls. Many people say that this is an allusion to modern day America and modern day Israel. I don't fully agree, but we'll see that too. All right, first of all, what is happening in Israel? What's happening in Israel is we had the first round of coronavirus beginning in March, right after Purim, and it was very serious. And the government had a wonderful siyata d'shmaya. Hashem came to help and it became contained. As soon as the coronavirus was contained in Israel and the mortality rate dropped way down, the casualty rate, the new people, it dropped down for about 3 weeks. It was close to zero, maybe one sick person. It was in less than 2 figures. You couldn't have 1 million of sick people in a day, because there were less than 10 people a day. So the government came out with an expression. First of all, the prime minister says, this is my expert handling of the situation. And the health ministry came out and said, no, the prime minister's wrong. We defeated Corona. And then the medical profession came out and said, the doctors are wrong. We defeated Corona. Oh, okay. Corona in Latin means crown. Crown in Kabbalah is Keter. That's the highest sphere. Corona is a very thick indication. It comes right from Hashem and doesn't pass go. Nobody can mix into that. Okay, nobody. It's Hashem. So by a person saying they defeated Corona, they're saying they defeated Hashem because Hashem sent the Corona, and we'll soon find out what's happening. There's our preconditions in the Gemara for the coming of Mashiach, and one by one they're happening. You want to see the preconditions of coming Mashiach? Turn to Tractate Sota, the last page, 49b, gives a list of preconditions. The same preconditions are repeated in the Gemara and Tractate Sanhedrin, more than one place. Okay, so Hashem says, okay, wise guy Israelis, chutzpahdik Israel, you think you're repeated? Okay, fine, you repeated. Now let's see. And meanwhile, there's a balagan with the government and this and that. And the government said, well, we need a unity government, an anti-corona government. So people gave them credit. Okay, make anti-corona, whatever. So what they did is after the elections, they made their coalition and they made more ministers. It's a more bloated, inflated government than ever was. There's 36 ministers for little Israel. Okay, pretty soon there's going to be as many members of parliament, as many members of Knesset that there are MPs in the House of Lords and the House of Commons put together in the entire US Congress. There are 36 ministers. Every one of these ministers gets a brand new Audi. Audi in Israel is big money, big money. And a lishka, an agency, a whole set of offices, a bureau, and 2 helpers. This is paid by the Israeli taxpayer, who is now 1 million of them are unemployed, and businesses are dropping down day and night. Just yesterday, one of my very good friends, David Shul, very good friend, Hasidic guy, he drives a bus. He drives a private bus and he takes groups on tours when they come to Israel. There's no tourism, okay? So he lost that. So then he local, drive it to Yeshivas. The Yeshivas are locked down. He lost that too. He lost his parnasa one by one, and he doesn't know where the next meal is coming for his wife and 6 children himself. Okay, so this is a situation with many families in Israel. Many families in Israel that are in the same boat. Okay, and meanwhile, the government is completely out of touch with the people. Well, I'm telling you, I'm not talking politics. You will see, we're going to see at the end of the Surah where the Gaon says exactly what is happening in Israel. This is exactly what is going to happen before Mashiach. The Gaon of Vilna is more explicit as to what's going to happen before Mashiach, even when the Gemara is in Tractate Sota. And we're talking about Wed July. I show you the book. It's chapter 11, Perek Yud Aleph, chapter 11. And anybody could go, they get the book and look at chapter 11, and you can see what I'm giving you in translation and right here. Okay, so you see all this happening completely out of it. And listen, and give themselves a pay raise. Hey, wait a second, is this a time to get a new Audi? Is this a time? Emergency usually in wartime government is 15 to 18 ministers. Okay, so now we're in a pandemic, a national emergency, 36 ministers. And what happens with the 36 ministers? They don't know who takes care of Corona, if it's the Ministry of Defense or the Ministry of Health. And you go to the Ministry of Health, they say, no, it's not us. Well, who's going to take care? Oh, the Ministry of Health, go to Civil Defense. Hey, Civil Defense says, but they don't let us do our job, okay? They took it away from us. They said, the doctor, nobody knows. In Israel, it is now total chaos. It's as if it's worse than not having a government at all. Absolute total chaos. And you can see, if I thought a week ago or 2 weeks ago that Mashiach was close, now seeing what's happening, things are going really fast every day. It's much more. Okay. Now this is, in the meanwhile, why are all these difficulties happening in Israel? Why is Hashem smacking us right and left? Okay. And you know something? I'm going to interject something. With all that's happening in Israel, I would still prefer living here in Eretz Yisrael 10,000 times more than living anywhere else in the world. Okay, so why? Because in Israel, a Jew is best protected. Despite the fact of what we're dealing with, and despite the fact of our problems, and despite the fact that I'm even talking about defense, not even talking about the Hamas missiles and Hezbollah's 150,000 missiles and Syria and the Golan Heights, not even talking about that. We're talking about domestic, Okay, if I would go into what's happening in our security situation, beloved brothers and sisters, you wouldn't sleep at night. If anybody here in Israel, they wouldn't sleep at night. But don't go in there. We're talking about Mashiach, and we're talking about how Chachamim, like the Gaon of Vilna, saw this close to 300 years ago, 280 years ago. They saw this. Okay. Now wait, that's Israel. Now, why is this? Hashem is giving us a wake-up call over here. And what happens with an alarm clock? That alarm clock, a snooze clock, is different than something else, because a snooze clock, a good snooze clock, the second alarm is louder than the first. And if you don't wake up and smack the top, then the third alarm is louder than the second. Every subsequent alarm is louder than the previous one. That's a good snooze clock, because eventually it gets you up till you wake up and you smash the clock. And okay, the clock said, I did my thing, I got you out of bed. All right. But Hashem wants to bring us Beis HaMikdash. Hashem wants to bring us Beis HaMikdash. And this is something, put it in the back, Beis HaMikdash is something that we should always have in our eyes, in our heart. And when we say, Hashem, when we give us the right to see you come back to Yerushalayim, and Yerushalayim milcha b'hamim tashuv, Hashem, come back to Yerushalayim. And this, what do we think? We don't think of the Jerusalem Museum or the Jerusalem Zoo. We think of the Beis HaMikdash. That's what we think of, the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, and it's something we should all have in our eyes and in our heart all the time. And this is one of mitzvahs we should do all the time, is to yearn for the Beis HaMikdash. And what I tell people almost every week, okay, if you're in Golus, you're still in the diaspora. By the way, we in Israel, we're in Golus too. According to the one, we're in Golus too, okay? But it's a difficult Golus because we are in an Erev Rav Golus, okay? You guys are in a Golus with Esau. You're in Esau's Golus, okay? And Erev Rav is a much more difficult Golus than Esau. In other words, your diaspora is easier, but hold it. That is different. That's until Esau does something that Erev Rav doesn't do. Okay, Erev Rav goes for the soul. Erev Rav wants to attack the Jewish soul. Erev Rav wants to do the Esau goes for the body. All right, and you could see that in, at least in North America, there are acute attacks to the body. Now I'm going to go to put Israel aside and go to Muna News in North America. Okay, just today, and I was asked about a brand new, whatever you call it, prophecy. Not prophecy, it's facilitated communication. You've heard of FC with the autistic kids? Okay, I witnessed this. FC is the real deal, but it depends who the facilitator is. Because I did FC with Binyamin Golden, who this was a couple of years ago. He's the Rebbe of all the autistic. They can't say a word without his okay. And I did, he held his hands, he held my hand. You could feel the electricity on this guy. All right. And I know what he was communicating to me, but the facilitator had a different agenda, and the wine took the taste of the glass, as they say. In other words, you have to have a completely objective facilitator that doesn't have an agenda. In other words, if somebody wants to convince you of their preconception, they said the autistic said this, the autistic person said that, you can't know otherwise. All right, so they have to be objective and honest. All right, so other than that, they asked me that Daniel was, so he's one of the head autistics, and he hasn't opened his mouth for a long time. And he opened his mouth today, and he said, everybody come back to Israel immediately because Mashiach is on the way, et cetera, et cetera. So the person that was interviewing me asked me what I thought of this, and I mentioned what I thought. And he said, wasn't Daniel a bit dramatic? And I heard the tape of the facilitator, what the facilitator said. And I said, Daniel did not hit on all the chazal. He says, well, what he was supposedly heard is neshama heard upstairs, but I don't go by what neshamas hear upstairs. I don't go by dreams. I go by what the Gaon of Vilna says, and what Abaye and Rava tell me, and what Ula and Rav Nachman tell me in the Gemara. I got to go by the Gemara books. Okay, so I compared what he said to Gemara. It was pretty much true. Some things that he said were a little bit odds with the Gaon of Vilna, so that I took a little bit of issue with. But the interviewer said, he says, Rabbi, what do you think of this? The interviewer sent me a long list of what's going on in America. I couldn't believe it. Okay, this is Emunah news. Look at this. Okay, it says if you have a job and your company is still operating, you have to be very, very, say Psalm 100, start saying it all day long. Mizmor Todah, thanking Hashem all day long. Look what's happened in America. J.C. Penney declared bankruptcy. Zara closed 1,200 stores. La Chapelle withdrew 4,391 stores. Chanel discontinued, Hermes discontinued, Patek Philippe discontinued production, Rolex, the luxury watches, discontinued, the world's luxury industry crumbled. Okay, Nike, $23 billion loss, Gold's Gym filed for bankruptcy, Starbucks closes 400 stores, WeWork, on and on and on and on and on, hold it. And then listen, okay, Hertz, the biggest car rental company, filed for bankruptcy. Comcar, the biggest trucking company, filed for bankruptcy, and they're stuck with 4,000 trucks. So just with Comcar, you got 4,000. Okay, usually a trucker, what they do, they got these rigs going 24 hours, and you got two drivers on a rig. Okay, one doing 12 hours, and they'll do another 12 hours. So if you got 4,000 rigs like Comcar has, that's 8,000 drivers. One company, 8,000 guys out of work. Wow. Okay, and we mentioned J.C. Penney. Warren Buffett, the world's biggest investor, lost $50 billion in the last 2 months. Okay, BlackRock, the world's biggest investment company, is taking, that they manage over $7 trillion. They're signaling disaster. Mall of America, the biggest mall in America, stopped making the mortgage payments. Okay, what is not on this list, world's most reputable airline, Emirates, laid off 30%. U.S. Treasury is printing trillions, okay? The greenbacks you have, they're worth the paper they're printed on, that's about it. This list does not include a few other things, Sears, Walgreens, they go at the Gap, Nordstrom, Macy's. By the way, before I took it here, Kmart, Bose, AC Moore, and AT&T. AT&T closed down 250 retail stores. Microsoft closed down all its retail stores. Okay, so here, with unemployment now has surpassed 38 million people in the United States, which is over 25%. As unemployment in Israel is 1 million people, okay, and America, I don't know what but what's the population of America now? 300 million? 300 million, say 5 times Israel. I'd say it's about equivalent, same unemployment in Americans in Israel, okay? So it's got a heavy thing. So here we go. All right, now that is what's going. What is the template for disaster? What is the template? Wow, I take a deep breath if I mention the prophecy of the holy Kabbalist Rabbi Lazer Brody, who said 2 predictions before he died. They both came true, and he made a 3rd prediction too. I always talk about the first 2. I rarely talk about number 3. The first 2, he died right before there was Arab Spring, before the uprisings in Egypt and Libya and all over the Arab world. He said that the Arabs are going to uprise against their own governments before the civil war in Syria started, and that's exactly what happened. The second thing he said has also come true. He says Bibi is going to attempt several times to attack Iran, and Hashem won't let him. One time Trump stops him, one time in the election, and one time our own intelligence chief. All the time when Bibi has wanted to attack Iran, hasn't happened. And the third, I don't like to say it, okay? And I never said it out loud because words are very possible, but you can imagine what I'm going to say when I'm going to tell you what's going on now. Look what happened in, let's take pre-World War I Germany. Pre-World War I Germany was the most cultured country, not in Europe, the most cultured country in the world. Okay, if you wanted to be a full professor in an American university in the late 1800s, the early 1900s, you almost had to have a graduate degree from Würzburg or Heidelberg or one of the prestigious German universities, because Germany was #1 in science, Germany was #1 in art, Germany was #1 in music, Germany was #1 in medical research, Germany was #1 in so many different areas, okay? So most disciplines, you almost had to have postgraduate work in Germany. So if you said you got your master's from Heidelberg and you came back to do your PhD in Harvard, you're guaranteed full professor somebody. You're going to go high. You really know high. This was Germany. German etiquette. Let's see, a man stands at attention, clicks his heels to greet a woman. German etiquette, German, most cultured people in the world. Okay, then after Germany was devastated economically in World War I, and after they lost the war, the Allies made a debilitating armistice, and they really put Germany's nose in the ground, and unemployment was crazy in Germany. Okay, so unemployment was crazy in Germany, the economy was crazy in Germany. Whatever happened in Europe when the economy was not good, who got blamed? That's it. Who got blamed? The sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Jewish people. And this was always the reason, the excuse given for pogroms, and the Jews have the money, and the Jews take the money, and the Jews do this. This was the reason for time immemorial. Okay, now we have a situation in the United States of America, and a little bit slower in Canada, and a little bit slower in the UK, and a little bit slower in Australia, and much slower in New Zealand, but it's there. It's a lot faster in America. So we just said the same cycle is happening. It's just faster in America than it is outside of America. Okay, but we're talking about olive gulls. And see the same thing happening here. But afterwards, say the major difference between Israel and the United States. Okay, the difference, first of all, look what's happening in America. All right, so in America, simultaneously, from Shemayim, the police show their brutality. By the way, they show it in Israel too. They show it in Israel that the Israeli police are not any better than the American police. All right, and we could see it. To be a Haredi in Israel is not simple today, because there's a joke that we're pre-Holocaust, that we go around with our instead of a yellow badge, we go around a mask. Because if Haredi doesn't get a mask on, he right away gets clamped down. He gets a 500 shekel fine. Go to the beach in Tel Aviv and see if anybody's bothered people that don't have masks on. Okay, nobody. And there's what went viral in Israel, and even the secular Jews went up against it, was in Jerusalem. A little 13-year-old girl went to the grocery store to take her baby sister and her 6-year-old sister for a walk. And in Israel now, we're having another Hamsin, very hot weather. Okay, the weather is humid and it's in the high 90s. In Jerusalem, it's less humid, but it's in the low hundreds. And she bought herself what we call, in America, call it a popsicle. Here we call it an Arctic. Okay, just Arctic. So she took her mask down to lick her popsicle. And a cop came down, slapped her. You're not wearing your mask properly. If I was you. So she right away, she was terrified. She started crying. And people came back and did, this is the brave cops. Where are you? And you go to a secular neighborhood, you won't see a single one. Right out of my house, right here, right out of my house, right here, there is a check post, and there's police, to make sure that we don't leave the ghetto. So we've got our ghettos, we've got our, it's crazy what's going on in Israel now, crazy. And all the lockdowns are only in Haredi neighborhoods. Beitar in lockdown, Kiryat Sefer in lockdown. There are plenty of people with corona elsewhere, but it's right here. Is it doing, okay, I love government. I'm just saying, I'm talking about Mashiach, I'm not talking about politics. Okay, but that's what we have here. What is going on in America? In America, you have Black Lives Matter. That they don't care about Black lives like they care about anti-Semitism. And anybody that's a real, that nobody did for civil rights in America like the American Jews. Nobody. Okay, nobody gave Black people a break like the American Jews. Okay, but now what happens? As soon as there's an excuse to riot, and as soon as an excuse to hate Jews, boom, there's an excuse. Now it's free game, free game. Look at Fox News today, and Fox News, there are 2 articles from these Black pro football players that are bad-mouthing Jews, anti-Semitic things, and they're saying all the kind of things, the Jews here, and they're quoting Louis Farrakhan, and they're quoting Jesse Jackson, they're quoting all these violent anti-Semites. Okay. How many Jewish businesses have been burned down in America last month? In Philadelphia, Black Lives Matter are calling Philadelphia, Minneapolis. They want to cancel the police force. So you see, the USA is on the way to anarchy. Trump is now, okay, he's been revealed with his full, what he's really worth, just like Bibi has been revealed what he's really worth. And Hashem is showing that if Trump did anything right, or if Bibi did anything right, it's because Hashem let them do something right. But since with all the bravado, we're this or we're the greatest game, Hashem let us see what they're worth without Hashem's help. So that's what's happening in America, the American economy and the Israeli economy. We're so great and we're so powerful and we beat Corona and we did this and we did that. Okay, Hashem says, let's see how you do on your own. Good, give it a try, guys. Go right ahead, give it a try. Okay, and this is what the Gemara says in the beginning of Avodah Zarah, second page. Hashem is sitting upstairs and he's laughing. He's laughing. King David said it right in the Psalms, in Psalm number 2. Hashem's laughing at him. Okay, so this is what's going on here. So what's Hashem doing in America? What is Hashem doing in America? Hashem wants you, beloved brothers and sisters, to come home to the land of Israel. Come home to the land of Israel. Now, I preface that things are not easy in the land of Israel. Why? Because Mashiach is on the way. And nobody gets Mashiach comfort zone. Mashiach does not come comfort zone. All right? But in the end, we're going to say how to do. What does the Gaon of Vilna say? The Gaon of Vilna, he compares. Now we're going to go into the Gaon. The words I'm saying now are no more commentary. The words now are right out of chapter 11. You can see where I've highlighted different things. Right here, chapter 11 of Evan Shlema. If you have Evan Shlema at house, you have to take it off your bookshelf and bring it here. Okay. Look what the Gaon says. He says, now I want to read this right. I want to say exactly true to the Gaon of Vilna. Okay. And I don't want to budge one syllable from what he says. So I'm going to say the original in Hebrew and then translate it. Okay. We are now in chapter 11 of Evan Shlema, and clause number 5. The Gaon says, the Gaon says that before dawn comes, the darkest dark of night comes. And he says the expected mother, when she's about to give birth, her pain is at its maximum. And the Gaon describes, that's why it's called Chevle Leda. That's why it's called the labor pains of Mashiach, Chevle Mashiach. And labor pains in Hebrew are called Chevle Leda. Okay, like chavalim are ropes. The ropes of giving birth. And the ropes of giving birth are like these ropes that's tied around a woman's insides and excruciating pressure. And guys, you use your imagination, but you can't imagine what this is. They said if guys would give birth, then everybody would have one kid, because afterwards they said, I'm never doing this again. Okay, so it's lucky that women give birth, because they forget about it afterward. That's why a woman has to bring a korban, that's why she has to bring a korban to everyone, to the base of Mikdash after she gives birth, because when she gave birth, she swears she'd never do that again. So when a person wants to break an oath, then he has to bring a korban to the base of Mikdash. That's okay. So the Gaon says, Kodem ha'geula yichbed ha'galut yoter mikol ha'galut. Wow. He says, before the geula, the weight of diaspora becomes the heaviest. Okay, that's right now. That's right now. Now the Gaon says, he says that Am Yisrael is the Jeremiah in chapter 1 says Jeremiah compares the Jewish people to a kernel of wheat, to grain. And he says a kernel of wheat has 3 coverings. It has the chaff. You shake it, the chaff goes away in the wind. And then it says the straw, it's a little bit more. And then it has the, in Hebrew it's called subin. In English it's called, what's it, the different whole wheat, bran, okay, bran, subin. And the bran sticks very tightly to the pericarp, to the seed. And to get the bran, the wheat has to be brushed. You just can't shake the wheat to get the bran off. So the Gaon of Vilna says that corresponding to the 3 coverings of the wheat that are thrown away, this is Yishmael and Esav and Erev Rav. These are the 3 groups that Hashem is going to throw away from the Jewish people in order to reveal the core, the true core of the Jewish people, just like we reveal the true core of the wheat before we ground beef. We don't grind it with the chaff. We don't grind it with the straw. Okay, and the people, the elf people say that whole wheat bread is good. The Gemara says that the white bread is the most. It's what you serve a king. You don't serve a king whole wheat bread with the ground. That's out of Kabbalah. And the Gemara is talking about Kabbalah because it has that thin coating on it. Let it go. So what does it go on say? He says the chaff, that's Ishmael. That the Mashiach ben Yosef is going to get rid of them very quickly. And then he says Esav, that's the more difficult. Esav, that is corresponds to the middle. That's the hard hull of the wheat. The hard hull of the wheat, that's Esav. Okay. Esav is what you're dealing with outside of Israel. Okay. In Israel, we're dealing with a klipa that sticks closest to Am Yisrael. This was the Erev Rav that came out of Egypt, according to Kabbalah. And you can't tell the difference between a real Jew and an Erev Rav. You can't tell, right? So what the Gaon says, he said, just like you scrub the wheat, the only way that Hashem can take away the Erev Rav is by the difficulty of the diaspora, getting scrubbed in diaspora. And that's the scrubbing we're getting over here. Okay. Now, he says, as the generations get closer to Mashiach, the Erev Rav gets stronger. By the way, the Erev Rav, I didn't define that. I'm sorry, I should have defined it at the beginning. The Erev Rav is the riffraff. When Am Yisrael came out of Egypt, there were a lot of tagalongs. People came out of tagalongs. The Erev Rav were the riffraff tagalong. They were not Jews, but they took the advantage. They say, oh, we're going to get out of Egypt when a Jew's getting out of Egypt. Okay, so they hitchhiked along, and what they did, they just remained idolaters, and they brought the Jews down. They brought the Jews down. And this is tradition, according to Kabbalah, that the Erev Rav reappear, souls of the Erev Rav reappear in every generation to challenge the Jewish people. Okay, that we have to overcome them to get closer to Hashem. All right. Now, the Gaon says something. He says, as you see, why they talk about the government, they talked about the Audis and unemployed people, but the government's giving itself the pay rises and government. He says, at the end of Golus, you will see the Erev Rav will take command. In other words, they will grab the governing of the Jewish people in Israel, and they will steal from the poor land of Israel. And this is what the Tikkunei Zohar, what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, Tikkunei Zohar, that the enemies of Israel will become the heads of Israel. Okay, so you can see just today, one of the big politicians, he said that it's not fair that they closed down because the emergency measures, the government's doing, just shaking its head, doesn't know what it's doing. So they opened up everything really quick. Now they had to try to close things down. So they left the shuls open at 19 people. You're allowed to have 19 people in a shul, which is also stupid because it doesn't say the difference between a little shtibel and the grand shul of Tel Aviv. Okay, the grand shul of Tel Aviv, 19 people, it makes no sense. The government doesn't know what it's doing. And you go into a little, sometimes you have a little grocery store that turned into a shul, neighborhood shul, 19 people. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, it just doesn't make any sense. But what he says, this is what they're going to grab. They're going to rule the Jewish people in the land of Israel right before Mashiach. And they will be azei panim and rishoyim. And they will be azei panim, brass and crass, a tremendous chutzpah and cruel chutzpah and evil. Cruel chutzpah and evil. So what is that? This one guy in the government comes up and he says, I can understand. How come the gyms are locked down and the shuls are still open? In other words, the gyms and the shuls should be on the same way. Okay. You could do push-ups and sit-ups. I could train a person anywhere, in the park, at home, or anywhere, but you can't daven a minyan anywhere. By the way, we're on lockdown, and because of my age, I'm davening at home. At cardiac until further notice. All right. Now, 5 types of Erev Rav. This is the Gaon. He's concluding what he says, and he says, just so you'll know and you'll recognize them, there are 5 types of Erev Rav in Israel. The first type are the ones that make the arguments and speak the Lashon Hara. Okay. If you know a person who is a gossiper, a slander, this and that, stay away from him. If you know a person who is argumentative, you see someone that's always picking fights with other people, this and that, stay far away, because that's almost guaranteed Erev Rav. Number 1. Number 2, lustful people. People that are promiscuous, people that are full of lust. Use your imagination, but there are people like that in the headlines. Second, the hypocrites, the people that their inside is far away from the outside. Their outside is far away from their inside. In other words, they may put on a very nice show, but the inside is terrible. The 4th type are the ones that are chasing after publicity, and the 5th type are the ones that are chasing after money. Okay, he says, and right before, he said, the worst of all are the Amalekites, and they're the first one. A person, the Gaon of Vilna says, a Jew who speaks badly about other Jews, a Jew who picks arguments with other Jews, he's argumentative, and even says he's doing it in the name of Torah. No, that's an Amalekite in the name of Torah. That's Erev Rav. That's number 1 of Erev Rav. This is not my words. These are the words of Gaon of Vilna. You can check me. It's right here. You can see right here the words of Gaon of Vilna and Erev Rav. And you see where he says right here. He says, Aguim Mikun, that's Amalekim, and they are the ones that speak. Okay, and they won. Oh, Ein David Ba'ad She Yimchu Me'olam. Okay, and Mashiach is going to come when Hashem takes care of them. So we'll see. Where you can expect some big surprises in Am Yisrael. This is the tough news. Now comes the good news. Save the good news for last. Okay, good news, and then we're going to save some time for questions. Tough news, right? Hello, brothers and sisters. The Gaon says like this. The Gaon says the power of Torah is going to get you home to Mashiach. It's going to protect you. The more Torah you and your family learn, the more Torah that your husband, your sons learn, that's the more you're going to be protected. Okay. The Gaon says the more a person distances himself from philosophy and the ways of the Gentiles. Philosophy, we're talking about non-Torah philosophy. People, this is a socialist or a feminist or this, somebody argued me about women's rights. Somebody gave me a hard time today about why I don't publish pictures of women on my websites. said, I'm not allowed to. What do you mean you don't? This is a religious Jewish person. I said, it says it's Kriyishma, lo tatu. Okay, I cannot put a picture of a woman and then Chas v'Shalom, Gennady or David Dome will see a woman and because Lazer showed it to him. I can't do that. That's called Mirshov B'fnei Ver. That's called knocking a person down. It's our job to build each other up in mitzvahs, not to knock each other down. Hey, how'd you like to taste this cheeseburger? No, you can't do that. Okay, if you're going to do it, it's bad enough you do it yourself, but to take another Jew and to lure him with it, no, you can't do it. You can't do it. So it's not a matter of it. I think it was 6 weeks ago, I gave a lesson about Devorah. I gave a lesson about Ruth. I gave a lesson about Huldah the prophetess, about the levels of prophetess. Who brought King David into the world? That's it. Judaism, there's nothing chauvinistic at all about Judaism. Okay, but you're not allowed to, a person not allowed to commit adultery. And not allowed to commit adultery, and that way you're supposed to look at your spouse only. You're not supposed to look at another woman. Okay, that's it. So you see, this is also the type of lies that a person goes away from Torah, and no, they hold by like the women of the wall. Women of the wall, we want the equality. No, listen, you don't do that. And there are times of the month where you're coming to the wall, to the remnant of the holy temple. You know what ritually you have to be when you come there? And there are times in a month when a woman should not go into shul. Do you want to go to the wall? And she puts on tefillin in her head and she dances with the Sefer Torah. This is Erev Rav. Sorry, this is Erev Rav. And difficult. They're attaching themselves to Jewish people and they're attaching themselves to the mitzvahs. And this is what's going on right before Mashiach. So what we have to do to be saved from that, now this is what the Torah says. If a person doesn't know what the Torah says, he should ask a bona fide, qualified rabbi, what does the Torah say? Okay, Rabbi, am I allowed to shake hands with a woman? People said, this is not extreme, going to shake hands with a woman. Hashem made sure that nobody's shaking hands with women anymore. You're not shaking hands with the man, guys, okay? And shaking women. And the person said, what a prude. The prude is Shomer Nagia on a date. Shomer Nagia. Hashem makes us all Shomer Nagia. Look what Hashem is doing. One by one. We said 2 weeks ago. What Hashem is doing? Because don't have the Hashem say, look, wake up, people, you're destroying your neshama. This is not good for your neshama. Okay, and Hashem, so people talking Lashon Hara, okay, Hashem, I'm going to put the mask, more difficult for you to speak Lashon Hara. This mask, one by one, look what Hashem is doing. Hashem wants to separate us from the Erev Rav. He's separating from the Erev Rav. He's giving us a mask. He doesn't want us to talk to Lashon Hara. He doesn't want us to be, and this is all that the Gaon is telling us. This is all the Gaon of Vilna. It's not Lazer. Tonight is a lesson the Gaon of Vilna translated right out of his books. Okay, the Gaon says the more you distance yourself from philosophy and from modern trends and the kind of movements, ideology, and this and that, know only Torah. You stick to that, and if a person wants to make it standing up with a smile on his face to Mashiach, he's got to stick to the Torah, he's got to stick to Torah ideology and no philosophy, okay? And the Gaon says, remember, Geula is like a birth, okay? So what happens to a birth? What happens to a woman? Okay, if you take, women can tell you, you go to a prenatal course. What do they teach in a prenatal course? As a fitness trainer, what do you teach people in a prenatal course? Okay, prenatal course, they do a woman like a boxer. A boxer learns to flow with a punch. A woman learns to flow with the contractions. Do not fight the contractions. Don't go like this, makes it even worse. Okay, flow with the contractions. So how do we flow with the contractions? We learn to breathe. Teach women to breathe properly. Okay, and breathe. It's just like a workout, doing a steep workout. The inhaling and the exhaling, very similar. Okay, if we want to learn something similar in Pilates, teach how to breathe too. Okay, do not fight. You can't fight the labor pains. You cannot fight them. That's what's happening now, both in Israel and abroad. You can't fight the Chevlei Mashiach. You can't fight the tribulations prior to Mashiach. So what do? We flow with them. How do we flow with them? We flow with them two ways. Two ways. Charles Darwin says survival of the fittest. Dog eat dog. Okay, you still have a little bit of money left? Your neighbor has got no money? Feed your family. Lock your doors. Shut the blinds. Stick that, close that. The Gaon says that Mashiach will be hastened by way of loving kindness. Loving kindness. I'm going to tell you a story. I told you earlier in the shiur, I talked about my very good friend, the truck driver. Okay, he is known, this guy does favors for everybody. He does favors for everybody. He's the one that sets up the sukkah and the shul during sukkahs, and he's the one that makes sure that all the Torah families have food on Pesach. And he does. The guy is so active, such a Baal Chesed. And he goes around to the farms with his truck, picking up goods and buying them wholesale and giving them out to Torah families. Unbelievable. Now, he himself can't pay the rent. He himself was about, last night, was almost thrown out. He came over to my house and told me a situation. And he was about to be thrown out of his apartment with the 6 kids in the street. Okay. So what did he do? Went today. Today, luckily, he got a little work, got a few pennies. And he drove a group of people to the Tzaddikim's grave up north on the way to Rashbi, on the way to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He's a Kohen, so he couldn't go in there. But while they went to the Tzaddikim graves, he was davening from the truck. And he got a call. He got a call from a friend. And a friend says, "Oh, hey, hello, I'm really in a dire situation. I need help." He's used to, you call this guy, the truck driver, and he gives you help. And he says, "I don't want to cry to you, my brother, but I don't know where the rent and Shabbos meal is coming from. You know, I can still be, there's still a loaf of bread in the house, and there's still milk, but I don't know what the sick is." He says, "I can't believe you ever said that. You don't say no to anybody. I can't believe you're saying no." He says, "Okay, I won't say no, and I'll do it." He says, "Hashem, it's up to you. It's up to you." A half hour did not pass, and he's crying out to Hashem, and he gets a call from an old acquaintance. And he says, "How you doing? I haven't seen you in a long while, this and that." To make a long story short, he got 10,000 shekels from an old acquaintance. It just made a lot of money. 10,000 shekels. Okay. Right away. Israel is the land of Emunah and the land of miracles. Okay. My friend, he's got unbelievable Emunah, and he lives as Emunah, and you can see this happen. Hashem keeps it closed, but Hashem doesn't let us go. The Gaon says that by way of Emunah, he can solve all the problems. Gaon brings all these predictions, everything difficult, all this, and the Gaon says, if you could remember 3 words, you're going to make it safe to Mashiach. If you could live these 3 words, you're going to dance in the base of Mikdash. And the 3 words are the 3 words of Emunah. And if you haven't seen a little book I wrote, it's called 3 Words of Emunah, it's a little inspirational book. It's 109 pages. You can get it on Amazon. I strongly recommend everybody read it. Okay, and see, it's not. I want to bring everybody safely to Mashiach. Okay, that's it. Get the book, give it to your friends, and God bless you too. Okay. 3 words of Emunah are Ein Od Milvado. There's nobody but Hashem. That's it. The Gaon, he tells you everything was going to happen, all these difficulties. And he says, you remember those 3 words of Emunah, and you're going to have salvation from all your enemies, anybody who tries to do you harm. If it's an anti-Semite, if it's Arab, everything. After he says all this, okay, then he says, Ein Od Milvado, that's it. Where was this brought down? This was brought down by his student, Reb Chaim of Volozhin. Reb Chaim of Volozhin made the promise, and promise comes right from the Gaon of Vilna. Okay, so Chaim of Volozhin is the promise that you're going to make it home. Okay, so here we go. Ein Od Milvado. Ein Od Milvado. So what we want to do, we want to strengthen our observance of Torah to tshuva the very best way we can. Assess ourselves. Hashem doesn't expect you to be Moshe Rabbeinu or Deborah the prophetess tomorrow morning. all Hashem expects is being a little bit better. My suggestion, right, the Gemara, the learner to go on. My suggestion is something very, very simple, and this is a promise from the Manchester Mashgiach. The Manchester Mashgiach, he promised that anybody that learns 2 halachas of Chafetz Chaim a day is going to make it home free. In other words, what we need to do now is what King David says, Sul mira v'aseh tov. Leave the bad and do the good. Okay, leaving the bad, let's ask Hashem, help me guard my tongue. No slander, no evil, nothing about another person. Okay, and I say any other human being, because some people think, that they could talk about other people, outside the tribe. No, you don't talk about people outside the tribe, because people that get used to saying slander about people, they end up talking about brothers and sisters within the tribe. We don't want that. Nothing bad about another human being. And if you can, like they said, the Manchester Mashgiach, Rav Segal says to Zichron and Vracha, he's no longer with us in the flesh, but he makes his promise that 2 halachas. And it stomps, it's fitting to what the Gaon says, because the Gaon says this is the worst type of Amalekite, a person who speaks Lashon Hara. So even if a person, we accidentally said something we shouldn't against Chafetz Chaim, we certainly don't want to be in that category of Amalekites. So we don't want to pick arguments with other people. Walk away from an argument. It takes 2 to argue. Just walk away. Thank you. You're right. I'm proud. I give in. You're right. I'm down the road. Okay, you're right, but I'm down the road. Okay, now walk away. You see the highbrows, holier than thou, and the mighties that they're right about everything. Okay, you're right. I'm down the road. For Hashem. And so this is something we want to stay away from. So let's say we want to assess ourselves, and it's difficult. The Gemara says, "Tafasta muba lo tafasta." If you try and grab too much, you don't grab anything. So let's do, and this is right away. Tonight's the start of the 3 weeks. It's already after sundown in Israel. Tonight's the start of 3 weeks. I didn't intend to do this, but this is exactly with our avoida in the 3 weeks, because the base of Migdash was destroyed because of intramural hate, and you destroy intramural hate by not talking bad about anybody, and you destroy intramural hate by not arguing with anybody. But you have your opinions. I got mine. Mashiach will come and decide who's right. Okay, that's fine. Meanwhile, do what you believe in. Don't go into social pressure, and certainly not. And follow your spiritual guide. That's it. Okay, so what we want to do: strengthen our emunah. Ein od milvado, that there's nobody Hashem. Strengthen our cleanliness of tongue, and strengthen our love and our clinging to Torah. That's it. Once again, strengthen our emunah, strengthen our lashon, our tongue, which means avoiding arguments, not arguing with people, not talking bad about people. Okay, and strengthening our love of Torah. Follow Torah philosophy. Follow Torah, what we call dat Torah. And by doing this, the Gaon of Vilna says that you can already, even before Mashiach comes, what's going to happen before when Mashiach comes? Mashiach comes, Isaiah the prophet says, Malad's dot. The whole world is going to be filled with wisdom of Hashem. But the more we do these 3 things, is stay clear of Lashon Hara, and cling to Torah philosophy, and strengthen our emunah, we enhance our dot, which is our spiritual awareness, and we cling to Hashem, and Hashem will already give us a taste of the spiritual awareness after Mashiach. And the Gaon says right here, there is no greater paradise. There's no greater paradise than knowing Hashem. There's no greater paradise than getting close to Hashem, and this will give you happiness. And Baruch Hashem, we should all, with big smiles on our face, be able to merit Mashiach. I urge you, beloved brothers and sisters, if you can't come to Eretz Yisrael right away, pray for it. And why? And they say, oh, but Lazer, you're talking about all these problems. I said, yes, I did, because that's Mashiach. We're not, you don't come to Eretz Yisrael because, oh, nobody warned me. Oh, yes, they did. But in America, in the UK, in Canada, you cannot fulfill all the mitzvahs of Torah. Nobody thinks of kosher tomatoes. or kosher grapes or kosher pears. Okay, and in Israel, they got you have to tie the fruit. You can't eat fruit that grows on a tree that's less than 3 years old. You have to wait till 4-year-old fruit. Nobody worries about that outside of Israel. We live a completely different rhythm. That's the whole thing. I don't care what the government is here, and I don't care because to me, Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael. Even though I pay my taxes, and I was a good boy, I served in the army for 29 years and 2 months and 12 days, okay? It did my deed, paid my dues, okay? But my love is Hashem, the Torah, and Eretz Yisrael. This is not my state that I pray for. I pray for the kingdom of David. You say every day, Et semach David avdecha meheiro tatzmiach. He says every day in our Shmona Esrei. And somebody says, oh, you're not a Zionist? Oh, yes, I am a Zionist. That my eyes shall see Hashem come to Zion. That's Zionism. Okay, the person that is secular doesn't say that. I say that every day. Okay, with the Zionists. So when you take vacations in Switzerland, I don't take vacations in Switzerland. You take cruises in Bermuda, I take cruises in Bermuda. In Eretz Yisrael. Okay, right here in Eretz Yisrael. It's Eretz Yisrael, this land of Israel. And this is what Hashem is making the difficulties now, because this is the king's palace, and you don't bring mud on the floor of the king's palace. Okay, if you're mudded out in the cow shed or you're mud out in the street, that's okay. All right, but you have to understand that outside of Israel, it's the cow shed, it's the street, it's other places. Here is the king's palace. And going against Torah is mud on the floor of the king's palace. The chef's got to clean it up. And you don't want to be the person that makes the king smell muddy. So Hashem is getting Eretz Yisrael ready for Mashiach. And you see all the building done here. It's building like crazy here. The roads done here. The government thinks they're doing it. It's all for Mashiach. It's all for Mashiach. So there'll be housing for people to come and have Mashiach. And there'll be roads. It'll be quicker to get to Yerushalayim. They're building a rail station. Where Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, 28 minutes by quick rail with underground tunnels and all that, because it costs the zillions. I don't know what the government's putting out a lot of money. Not because the government wants to do it, because Hashem wants them to do it. And that's why he let them do it. So Mashiach is right here. We do not conjecture as far as the date goes, but the Gaon does give us a timetable. The Gaon, he says he gives us a timetable and everything. The Gaon says that Pesach will be our freedom from bondage. By the way, the government now, because of Corona, governments everywhere are taking away personal freedoms. You know, they're using the coronavirus as an excuse to take away all kinds of personal freedoms. And in Israel now, they have the Secret Service that everybody's being monitored and it taps into your cell phone to wherever you go. And they say, oh, in case you get sick, that we'll know who you contacted, who you were in contact with, and where you were, so we can publicize it. Okay, that's nice. All right, you could do this to your political enemies. All right. So the Gaon says at Pesach, we're going to be free of all that. And then he says, Rosh Hashanah, Hashem is going to take revenge on his enemies. This is Gaon's timetable. I don't know what year this is. I hope it's this coming year. Okay. He says on Shavuos, that's the ingathering of the exiles. Okay. Expect that in the next Shavuos, Bezat Hashem should be back in Israel. There's Gaon. And he says on Sukkah, that's when the Holy Temple is going to be built. Holy Temple on Sukkot. Okay, we know the third Holy Temple, Hashem will bring it right down, complete package, prefabbed up in heaven, and come right down to a rebuilt Jerusalem speedily in our days. Amen. Okay, to our beloved brothers and sisters that spent the evening with us, hey, this was a private lesson. So far as I know, the administration did not join us. So far as I know, it wasn't published live on Facebook like we promised. Okay, so far as I know, it wasn't recorded. I get back a sign that I don't have permission to record because I'm a participant just like you. The administrators, they're in Miami, Florida. Okay, and I don't know what happened to them, but we got to hear about Mashiach. Anybody want to ask a question? Anybody want to ask a question before we sign off? Okay. Chepo Medij, everybody, is science against Hashem? No, Chepo. Science, really, true science, you can see it right to Hashem. And it comes from Hashem. And I'll give you an example. I gave a lesson in mathematics and Torah. Right out of Torah. Mathematics, for example, pi. Pi is the secret of the circle. Okay? Pi is an answer to Chepo. Pi, the secret of the circle, okay? So the secret of a circle is pi. That's how you figure out the radius, circumference, the area of a circle. Pi r squared, pi d. Pi is 3.14. Pi comes right out of Kabbalah. First chapter of the Arizal. Pi is Hashem's constriction. In Kabbalah, we learned when Hashem could not create the world because he was everywhere. So Hashem had to make, right there, Esther Roth, I'm right with you. Okay, I'm seeing questions I'm answering. Pi, as the first question, pi in Gematria is Shakai, Shem Shakai, that's the Shem of constriction. Okay, see, science, true science, it's right out of Torah. People say, well, how about carbon 14? Carbon 14 says that the world is zillions old. Anybody that reads commentary on Torah, King David says it also. Hashem created everything as it is. Hashem created the Alps as the Alps. The Alps did not grow up and mute from a little rock to a big mountain chain. Hashem created that way, okay? So when Hashem created, if you would have done on the first day of creation on the mountains, which is 6th day of creation, if you would have done that, then you're welcome, Moto. And if you would have done that on the 6th day of creation, and carbon 14 would have said, oh, it's a zillion years old. Hashem created the mountains, it's a zillion years old, okay? That's the way he created it, okay? Good, my pleasure to answer these questions, okay? Chepo, I could go on. What you asked me, I could give 10 lessons on, 15 lessons on. Write a book if I ever had, I just don't have enough time. Okay, somebody asked me about the third phase of Mashiach, the phase of the third day, getting rid of the Erev. That's exactly what we're talking about right now. That's exactly what we're talking about right now, was that we spoke about this evening. Okay, few people talk about it, that's true, and that's why we spoke about it right now. Okay, there was one question I forgot. Somebody asked me while I was answering a question. Somebody asked a question. Who is it? If you don't mind flashing over on chat again. Let's see what the chat, okay. Esther, how do we create? Oh, there we go. Thank you, Esther. That's the one I've read. Thank you, Esther. Esther Ruth asks, Rabbi, how do we encourage Erev Rav to truly come back to Hashem? Here's the thing. If they're truly Erev Rav, they're not going to come back to Hashem. Because you see, some people are just so stubborn, and you could frustrate, you put it right in their face. Look at this. And whatever they do, they'll deny Torah. Whatever they do, they'll deny Hashem. Whatever they do, they make fun of people doing mitzvahs. Whatever they do, and I'll give you an example. You could have Erev Rav with a kippah on his head. What's Erev Rav with a kippah on his head? Just someone from the Gaon. If you see somebody with a kippah on their head, and they're all the time machloket, all the time making argument, and all the time making this one's no good, and this one's no good, and this one's no good. The kippah on doesn't mean anything, because the Torah says, love your neighbors yourself, and he doesn't have that. That's a giveaway. That's a giveaway. What we do to make, now here, Esther, I'll answer your question a little bit different. If you take a Jew who's not keeping Torah, and he doesn't eat kosher, that doesn't mean he's Erev Rav. That means he was born into a non-religious house. Okay, unless he was in a yeshiva and then he went away from yeshiva. But a person born in non-religious, that's called Tinok Shnishba. That was like a baby in captivity. So we take that and we show him the Torah, and we show him what old Isaac says in the Trail of Tranquility, old Isaac's Trail of Tranquility. And old Isaac teaches us that there's a God upstairs, and we show him 3 words of Emunah. And, in a very nice way. And you see, hey, listen, who doesn't want to enjoy? Oh, thank you, David Dome. Okay, David, there's good old Isaac, and Baruch Hashem. David got on his wall a signed poster of old Isaac. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, old Isaac loves you, David. We show them the beauty of Judaism. Okay, I know people, they come went to universities, and they discovered that there are these religious Jews. Okay. And they look into it, they're open-minded, look into it. And they come and eat a Shabbos meal. That's what does Hashem ask us to do on Shabbat? To take a rest? To eat fantastic food? What is it? It's all joy. It's all joy. But to talk, people are lonely. You don't have anyone to talk to. You ever try talking to Hashem? There's no greater joy than Hashem. And this is what the Gaon of Vilna tells. He says there is no sublime satisfaction as getting to know Hashem. It's having this spiritual awareness, start speaking to Hashem. That's one of the favorite things. If I couldn't talk to Hashem, I'd be bananas long ago. Long ago. Okay, that's it. That's a great thing. Okay, so Esther Ruth, that's the thing. If you see somebody that is stubborn and doesn't want to listen, then maybe it's Erev Rav. But you see somebody that just doesn't know, that you can certainly prove. Okay, what about the health industry? I didn't see that question. It came up and it flashed right off. Somebody asked me a question about the health industry. Let's see. Let me get into the chat again. Okay, here we go. Encourage. Okay, here, Chepo's got another question. What health industry benefit focusing from the disease and not the cure? Is that blasphemy? Is that blasphemy? Chepo, that's a really wide question, okay? People are taking advantage, like they say, with the securities and the governments, the security forces and the government are taking advantage of taking away people's personal liberties. They're doing a lot of things that they don't need to do. And there are many companies, people they're trying to make a buck. Every other day you hear from another medical firm that they found a cure to COVID-19. Where are you? Where's your cure? And all of a sudden it turns out that there's no research, no nothing. And it's what they call bluff. B-L-U-F-F. People trying to cut a dollar, okay? And the reason it's big bluff is because Corona is from Hashem. This is the pre-Mashiach epidemic. And the world's got to get back to Hashem. You want to overcome it? If the world comes back to Hashem and the world stops all this junk, but then it's going to be difficult. You see it in Israel. You see it in Israel. And one thing I mentioned today, you don't see a mass tshuva movement in Israel. You just don't. And you see even religious people, they're indignant, no, we're not fine. We all have to do tshuva. You have to keep on your head, don't have to, we all have to do tshuva. All have to do tshuva. Okay, and maybe Hashem locked down synagogues because there was too much chatter in the synagogues. And chatter is blasphemy. When a person should be saying Amen, and he should be saying Yehei Shmei Rabbah, he should be answering and listening to the Shas, but instead he's talking to his mate, talking to his neighbor. That's blasphemy. That's okay. You can't take your synagogue, lockdown. Right? It's all Hashem is educating. Last week, at last week's lesson, I called coronavirus the Minister of Education, because it's educating us in a manner that we have things we haven't learned. Okay, I got another 2 minutes. I can answer another question. Anybody have? But in the meanwhile, while waiting for somebody questions, let me go down and say, David Dome, lots of love and every blessing. Elise Portman, so good to see you. Elishevin Gennady, wonderful. Tovale, hi Tovale. Tovale should be blessed. Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, Ariel, 1 second. Skip. Okay, Elaine, warmest regards to the Friedman family. Everybody stay well. Okay, so good to see you. And my best friends. Okay, Ariel Kahana. Ariel, you stay healthy, you hear? Okay, God bless you and success in everything you do. Robin Miller, Malka Ruth, blessings to you, Zahava. Isaac, good to see you. And let's see who's right below. I'm trying to see Robin. Okay, skipping down. Okay, skipping down. I'm hoping to get everybody. I'm sorry if I can't get everybody, but I say Chepo, Shani, Moto, good to see you. Good to see you. William Allen, how are you? Esther Ruth, good to see you. Jose Dominguez, mucho gusto, Jose. Daniel, Good. William Allen says hello to everybody. Back at you, William Allen. Okay, everybody, God bless you all. Have a wonderful week. Look forward to seeing you, God willing, next week. And stay well, and all your heart's wishes for the best, good health, and all abundance, and mature on spiritual wealth. Take care. God bless.
Blessings to you, Rabbi. Thank you.
You're more than welcome, Jose. Thank you. Okay. Good night, everybody, and good night.
Good night. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. God bless.